I guess my talk could be called Wall Bad, Deep Political Economy Analysis Good. Rex Tillerson and John Kelly just finished up their 2-day visit to Mexico to smooth over relations. The trip was headlined in Mexican papers by Trump's recent statements in the White House to manufacturers. Con México tendremos una buena relación, y si no, no. We will have a good relationship with Mexico, and if not, then no. Mexico is currently our third largest trading partner, and the U.S. has a trade deficit with Mexico of $58 billion or higher. According to the Department of Commerce, U.S. exports of goods and services to Mexico directly support about 1.1 million jobs, and there are estimates that it supports up to 6 million jobs. Trump has also stated that he wants to negotiate NAFTA because it's a really, really bad deal, and has resulted in a loss of 30% of U.S. manufacturing jobs. Well, he hasn't considered the facts, but that's not a news flash. The primary cause of the loss of manufacturing jobs is automation, not jobs to Mexico. Mexico has also lost a lot of manufacturing jobs to other countries, and 1 million young people come into Mexico's workforce every year, and there's nothing there for full employment for them. Mexican workers also sent home $25 billion in remittances last year, floating a significant part of Mexico's economy, particularly in some parts of the country. And part of that $25 billion, apart from that, was also Social Security payments by many workers that is going to benefit people like you and me who hope to retire and receive Social Security. But on to the main part of this talk, the wall, drugs, and human rights. There's a great deal of complexity to Trump's discussion of making Mexico pay for the wall. Part of his January 25th executive orders, not the travel ban, but the two before that, on border security and immigration enforcement, says that in accordance with existing law, including the Secure Fence Act, which was under the Obama administration, or RIRA, which was under Bill Clinton, we will take all appropriate steps to immediately plan, design, and construct a physical wall along the southern border using appropriate materials and technology to effectively achieve complete operational control of the southern border. Well, we already have a wall along 663 miles of the U.S. border that began to be built under Bill Clinton. About 500 people a year are found dead trying to get into the United States, and probably 2 to 3 times that many people are not found who are also dead. So there's basically 1,317 miles lacking fencing. But we forget about the Rio Grande River is a big part of that. So building even 413 more miles will cost between $11.3 billion or $25 billion. And the Department of Homeland Security already spends $25 billion annually to maintain the existing fencing, walls, etc. Now, this is to keep out bad hombres and keep out drugs, according to our president. However, the vast majority of drugs smuggled in the U.S. come through legal ports of entry. They come in trucks and in passenger vehicles. Drug trafficking organizations control smuggling routes into the U.S. for everything that needs to come in, people, drugs, anything else you can think of, and go back. And the number of undocumented migrants apprehended on the U.S.-Mexico border is down to levels from the 1970s. And in fact, from Mexico, it's negative. People are going home. There is a slight increase last year in overall apprehensions, but there are people coming from Central America. And most of those bad hombres are women and children who are not trying to avoid capture, but they're walking into legal ports of entry and they're asking for asylum. I have been an expert witness, a pro bono witness, on 50 asylum cases in the past 2.5 years. primarily from Guatemala and Mexico. And they are not bad hombres, they were all women. They're fleeing for their lives. And this is despite the fact that the U.S. has been pressuring and funding a harsh deportation in Mexico since 2014 called the Southern Border Program. And this program has dramatically increased detentions and deportations of Central Americans in Mexico. About 154,000 Salvadorans, Guatemalans, and Hondurans were detained, and I don't know what percentage, about 95, 98% of them were deported over the southern border of Mexico. During the fiscal year 2014, U.S. Customs and Border Protections apprehended 68,541 unaccompanied minors and about 78,000 family units, which almost always are women and children. The vast majority of them are from Central America. And they are all fleeing horrible violence, abuse, and poverty. Many of them are fleeing communities and regions that are controlled by drug trafficking organizations, in some cases to ship opioids and meth. And I'm going to come back to that. The other part of the Interior Enforcement Executive Order of January 5th basically states that the U.S. government is going to review all aid to Mexico, federal aid or assistance to the government of Mexico, and that is it's about to happen the first 30 days of that review. Well, the largest chunk of this assistance that we've given to Mexico, it's about $1 billion or $1.5 billion so far, depending on which source you look at, is for an initiative called the Medina Initiative. It's a bilateral partnership that was begun. It was actually begun under George Bush, first funded then under Obama, and it primarily goes to fight the drug war. Obama extended this. Now, what have been the results of Plan Merida? Well, 120,000 people have been murdered in Mexico in the past 12 years in widespread drug violence. More than 25,000 people have been disappeared. Thousands have had to flee their homes. There are mass graves all over Mexico, in Guerrero, Tamaulipas, Chihuahua, and many other places with dozens and sometimes hundreds of unidentified bodies. There's been a dramatic increase in human rights violations committed by Mexican security forces, torture, disappearances, extrajudicial executions. And there's been huge rise in the violation of rights and in the physical safety of transmigrants, of people passing through Mexico, like those women and children who have been showing up on the border. So Donald Trump is proposing to reevaluate these funds and use them to build the wall. Well, human rights activists that I've been working with for probably a couple decades in Mexico, but for the past 10 years, they've been asking America to stop funding the Plan Merida, but they certainly are not asking that it be used to build a wall. If the U.S.-Mexico wall is enlarged, then I believe it will most directly benefit the same drug traffic organizations it is supposed to harm. These organizations have control of corridors into the U.S., and the reason they got control of those corridors is because of the first wall that was built that pushed human traffic and other traffic into very isolated and difficult parts of natural terrain. So we now have a deterrence policy that uses geography to intimidate people and kill them. So what it's going to do is make the price of getting here more expensive. And it's going to benefit the people who already have integrated smuggling business models that go from South America, Central America, through Mexico into the U.S. And no one really knows how much money is made in the U.S. drug market, but overall spending on illegal substances is roughly $100 billion a year. Demand for certain drugs has changed. For example, from 1999 to the present, deaths from drug overdoses have doubled. In 2014, there were 29,230 people killed in car accidents, and 47,000 died of drug overdoses. In 1999, just 6% of drug overdose deaths were from heroin, and now it's 25%. The age of death of white, middle-aged, only high school educated men in this country is decreasing. There's a very great increase in use of alcohol and opioids among this population. So we have a growing drug market. We have a drug market where legalizing pot has made drug trafficking organizations move out of marijuana production, increased opium production. Mexico is now number 3 for opium production in the world after Afghanistan and Myanmar. A lot of it's produced in Guerrero, some border zones in Guatemala. And the profits may range from $18 to $39 billion a year. Now, those same routes that are used by drug trafficking organizations who recycle those profits into paying off many, many different kinds of people, police, army, judicial system, mayors, city councils in Mexico, U.S. Border Patrol agents, and they are obviously paying off people here. Because drug corridor routes that run from Guerrero up to Chicago, that run from Tijuana up to Vancouver, that run up the East Coast, there's a reason why drugs get through. Because people on police forces, people who are border agents and customs, there has to be facilitation. That's how those trucks get through. Somebody goes like this and doesn't stop them. So right now, the cost of coming to the U.S. from Mexico can range from $5,000 to $7,000, depending on how you come. From Central America, it can be $10,000, $8,000. And people who smuggle people also have to pay a series of bribes on the Mexican border, the southern border, inside of Mexico, on the U.S. border to get people through. So building a wall, it's already been shown, results in more deaths. It results in empowering the trafficking organizations that control these routes, and it results in a higher price and a higher profit for the smuggling business. But back to Mexico. Mexico also has some points of leverage against the United States. There's been talk of imposing, tariffs on goods that come in from Mexico. Be prepared to pay $10 a pint for your winter berries, and 20-25% more for your avocados. Mexico could refuse to deport people. It could refuse to engage in any work to interfere with drug cartels, and I would have some questions about how much is actually going on there anyways. And also retaliating against the United States and Americans. Many countries are talking now, maybe it won't be so easy to go to Mexico over spring break, or many international academic conferences don't want to happen in the United States. Finally, one of the bright points is Trump has really benefited the Mexican left. Mexico has presidential elections next year, and right now the front runner is Manuel López Obrador of the Moreno movement, who has, many people believe, actually won the presidency in the past. This will be, I believe, his third attempt. But I get videos posted from friends who are going to anti-Peña Nieto, anti-Trump rallies, and López Obrador has been campaigning in Los Angeles and other places. So it has actually galvanized, at an important time in Mexico, the left. We'll see how that comes out, but I'll just stop with that.